All right, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and I've been going over the PowerPoint presentations for Murachs, JavaScript, and jQuery 3rd edition as part of the AWD Application and Web Development 1000 Web Technologies class. I'm in Chapter 14, and we're going to talk about the conditional operator, also known as the question mark colon operator. Write you a very simple little bit of code here, and I do mean simple. So let's get rid of everything that we had in here. And we're going to put in this var num1 equals 71, var num2 equals 23, var max. Not going to set it to anything. If num1 is greater than or equal to num2, max equals num1. Else, max equal num2. Alert, the bigger number is max. Now, you all get this. Is num1 greater than num2? It is, so max will be set equal to that. So it should say the bigger number is 71. That's pretty simple, pretty straightforward, at least in my humble opinion. The bigger number is 71. Good. You'll notice that if I flip these, so if I make this one 23, and I make this one 71, now it's not bigger, so the max should be number 2, or n2, and num2, and it should still say the bigger number is 71. That's good. All right. But what I can do with the question mark colon operator is I can grab all of this code, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines of code. All right, I'm going to grab all of that and I'm going to comment it out. All 8 of those lines of code, and I'm going to replace them with this. Max equal num1 greater than or equal to num2, question mark num1 colon num2. So I just replaced 8 lines of code with 1 line. This line here says it's the equivalent of saying this line. Is num1 greater than or equal to num2? If it is, after the question mark, do the true action, which means take num1 and assign it to max. If it's false, do what comes after the colon, so take num2 and assign it to max. And you'll notice that if I do this, the bigger number is 71. And it doesn't matter if 71 is second, like we just had it, or again, if I flip these, let's make it 74, just so you can tell that's different, and we'll make this 21. All right, and if we run this again, the bigger number is 74. That just showed you very quickly, and it was nice because I actually put in a couple program lines that worked. All right. It's the question mark colon operator. Now the book gives you all sorts of examples. I'm not going to run through those with you. Again, how conditional operators can be rewritten with if statements. So we could take that question mark colon and do it. That's what I did first. All right. And in or operators. Okay. Let's take a quick look at a couple of those. All right. Again, as I do this, I'm just going to get rid of the code that I have here. And let's see, we'll say this var, we'll say num3. And we're not going to give it any value. So I'm going to say here if num1 is greater than or equal to 50 and num2 is less than or equal to 20, if that's the case, I'm going to say num3 equals 15. Else, num3 equals negative 15. alert num3 equals num3. Now, hopefully you can guess already, taking a quick look at the code, what this is going to say. So, well, let's run it and see what it says. All right. And it says nothing, which is not good. Did I put my alert statement in there? I don't remember. Alert num3 equals. All right. I'm missing a paren there, and that's what's going to screw that up. All right. So let's try it again. And it says num3 equals -15. So why did that happen? Well, it checked first to see if num1 was greater than or equal to 50, and it is. But since it's an and, both of things on both sides of the double ampersand have to be true. Is num2 less than or equal to 20? No. So this is false. So the else fires, and it set it equal to 15. That's an and. If I change that and to an or, watch what happens now. Now it says num3 equal 15. Because with an and, like we looked at first, with an and, both sides have to be true for the whole thing to be true. With an or, either or both have to be true for it to be true. All right? So the and is much more exclusive. The or is much more inclusive. There's also a not. So if this or this, let's make these both false, okay? So greater than or equal to 100, oops, greater than or equal to here, I don't know what I just did, 100, okay? Or this, we're going to put in here, or num1 not equal to 10. Okay, that should fire this line right here. And it says it's 15, exactly what I thought would happen. So why am I showing you this? The three operators that we use in here are or, and not. Not is the most exclusive because it's an inverter. Not makes not true is false, not false is true. All right? And is the next most exclusive because both sides have to be true. And or is the least exclusive, or it's the most inclusive depending on your verbiage. All right? So they give examples in here. I like to just give you some code when we say this. So this would say that the state could be equal to either one of those. If you used and, it would never be true because the state couldn't be equal to this and equal to that. All right, so there's a lot of ways that you can write this stuff, just so you know. Okay? If you want to say if state equal, let's say true, you can just say if state. So for Booleans, for Boolean variables, instead of saying if something equal true or equal true, you can just say the name of the variable. Or not if you want to check for false. All right? So the next thing that's done in here is this user interface for an invoice application. And this user interface for an invoice application is on starting on page 410. It says the two figures that follow show a web app that calculates a discount amount and total for an invoice. The application uses some of the conditional expressions and selection structures described thus far in the chapter. This is the interface as shown on 411. Here is some of the HTML. A select statement is used for the drop-down list, and the values that it returns are reg for regular, loyal for loyalty program, and honored for honored citizen. All right? So it calculates a discount amount and a total for the invoice, and it uses conditional expressions to calculate those. Those are shown here. Notice we've got the switch, which says if you're a regular customer, whether you get any kind of price break or not will depend on how much you bought. If you bought less than 100, you get nothing. 100 to 250, you get 10%. 250 to 500, you get 25%. More than 500, you get 30%. If you're a loyalty customer, you always get 30%. If you're an honored customer and your subtotal is less than 500, you get 40%. Otherwise, you get 50%. Okay? All right. The next thing that's in here, starting on page 414, is on handling exceptions. Now, one thing that's hard for people to understand, first of all, you're going to get exceptions in several of your classes. Just so you know, you're going to hear about these again and again and again. All right, so it's not at all like this is going to go away. But an exception is an exception to the rule. It's not a good thing. So what you do when you write code, and let's look at here, is you put what's called a TryBlock. And in that TryBlock are things that could potentially go wrong. If something goes wrong, the system looks for a catch block, and it does whatever is there. Now, you can't jump from here to here and back to here again. You can't do that. But the try says put one or more statements inside of the word try and curly braces that could potentially result in an error. The catch, and you can have multiple catch statements, say what you want to do if a certain kind of error happens. And the finally runs whether the try succeeds and there's no catch, or whether the try fails and there is a catch. So the finally is typically used for cleanup type of works, to close files, close database connections, etc. The errors have names and they have messages that go along with them. So here's a future value calculation. And if you run it and you catch an error, what can happen is it'll give you an alert that just basically says, in this case, it'll tell you what the name of the error was and the associated message. All right. So try catch is how you handle exceptions. Exceptions are exceptions to the rule. The way that you deal with exception is called exception handling. You do that by putting the code that could potentially fail inside of a try block. If it fails, you'll have one or more catch blocks to handle that failure. And then you can have an optional finally block that is typically done for housekeeping, closing files, closing database connection. The finally runs. If the try succeeds and there's no catch, the catch is never hit, the finally still runs. If the try fails and you do the catch, the finally still runs. All right, so when you work with these error objects, well, let's go back. You can use the try catch to process any errors thrown by an application. Errors are referred to as exceptions. The process of doing this is exception handling, as we just looked at. In the try catch, you code a try block that contains the statement that may throw an exception. Then you code one or more catch blocks that contain the statements that are executed when an exception is thrown in the try block. The finally is executed regardless. The error name variable that we talk about here in the catch block gives you access to the error object, which has the two properties that we just talked about, those being a name and a message. Now, you can create and throw your own errors. There are built-in errors, so if you try to do something you shouldn't do, there are built-in errors or exceptions that are thrown. But what if I'm doing a program on miles per gallon, where I tell you to enter in a miles driven, and you put in a negative number? I could throw my own exception then, all right? Something like a range error, which says a numeric value has been exceeded, either too high or too low. I could have a reference error, where a variable we try to read a variable that hasn't yet been defined. Some kind of a syntax error, some kind of a type error. So I can throw my own error if I want to. Reasons for using throw statements are to test the operation of the try catch and to throw an error from a function that lets the calling code know if one or more arguments that were passed into it are invalid. To create a new error object, you use its constructor with a string as a parameter, and that's what they're showing here. The word new means that this is an object. It's throwing a new type, that's the error type, and that's the code that you want it to show with it. So to trigger a runtime statement, you use the word throw. All right? Okay, let's jump into, starting on page 418, regular expressions. All right, that's the next several pages in here. Let me check my time. I like to keep these 20 minutes or less. I'm at 15 minutes. I don't think I can finish this and have it be under 20 minutes. So I'm going to stop right here. This is the first time I'll have 3 lectures for one chapter, but I'll stop and come back and probably have a 10 to 15 minute long lecture to finish up, and I'll do that in just a minute.